All right, and welcome in to another Duly Noted Podcast presented by ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and by Titan MRI. We appreciate our sponsors and still looking for a couple more. If you guys want to get in, watch us on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. WRUF's got a little bit of a technical glitch today, but hopefully it'll be fixed so you can watch it or listen to it on there. There's over 39 platforms where you can find the podcast and other favorite podcasts. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. What a news day. And this is after a pretty big news day, which would have been Saturday and Sunday, when you had the NFL playoffs, which were filled with stories. And then today, Jeremy Pruitt gets fired. I got to admit, we've got a guy who calls our radio show. He used to go by Tennessee Mike, and now he goes by the Cattleman. And he can be a little irritating. But he's been calling this. He's been telling me this was going to happen for a while. So Jeremy Pruitt fired with cause, which means they don't have to pay him. Now, it'll still go to the courts, and they'll have to deal with that. But think about this. In July of 2019, that's the last media days we've had in the SEC. We haven't had one since then. Of the coaches that were there, 8 of them have been fired. 8 out of 14 since then. Also, another stat for you. 7 coaches that are in the Saban tree that have been hired by SEC teams as head coaches, 4 of them have been fired. One of them twice, of course. We know him well. Will Muschamp. The only ones who survived are, Jimbo Fisher, and of course, kind of ran out of Tallahassee. Kirby Smart, who's done a pretty good job, obviously there, and Lane Kiffin, who got fired. He got fired at Southern Cal, obviously. Interesting, and the other part about this story that's really interesting is that our favorite athletic director, Phil Fulmer, is also stepping down. And it has nothing to do with this investigation, nothing to do with these NCAA violations. It's just coincidence. Just like it was just coincidence that he bumped Johnny Majors out. And it was coincidence that he got rid of the AD, John Curry, and just happened to be there and available. All I know for sure is we'll see Jeremy Pruitt at the Nick Saban Home for Wayward Boys pretty soon, because obviously they've got some openings there. I do want to get into Charlie Strong and some stuff that I think is really interesting, and where Florida is with football coaches. I am going to talk about basketball a little bit too, but right now I want to go to a good friend of mine. I mean, we've been friends forever, and he is the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the story of the year. Although I don't know, Frank Frangie joins me, and Frank, you guys might have been usurped by Mahomes' concussion news and all these other things for the weekend. I don't know if you're still the hot story right now.
We're still the hot story in this town, Pat. I can promise you that. We are. Here's what I can tell you. Urban and Trevor are undefeated. I think they're going to stay undefeated till, I don't know, early September is my guess. And it's all the rage around here. So I know all the stories going on. I just heard you talking about the Jeremy Pruitt story in the SEC. The NFL has a great Final Four. Rodgers and Brady in a championship game. Shocker, huh? But despite all of that, it's around here. I'm telling you, there's a palpable buzz that we haven't had around here in a long time, because Urban has the job, and before long he's probably going to have Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback.
Yeah, and it's not just that. I mean, I would think that because this isn't about hiring Urban Meyer because he has a Gator connection. That Gator connection's a little split, in terms of the way he left here. It's hiring him because he wins, and he wins everywhere he goes. And none of us can predict how successful he'll be in the NFL. None of us. I thought Steve Spurrier would be successful. He went to the wrong place, as he likes to say. But I'm sure that for you guys and for the fans there, you're not getting a lot of negative feedback about this hire, right?
For a multitude of reasons. Number one, Pat, the first thing you just said, he wins. He's a really good coach. No matter what you think about Urban and why he left and the school, he's a really good coach. Have you heard anybody debate that? People want to talk about this negative thing or that positive thing or this ancillary thing, but nobody has said he's not a really good coach. Pat, we've had one winning season here in the last 10. I've been the play-by-play boy 7 years now. I'm about to start my 8th year. 6 of those 7 have been double. And I am the problem. And it's been double-digit losses. 1-15 last year with 15 straight losses. This fan base wants so badly to have something to get excited about. That was the first thing. They want so badly to have something to be excited about. And then they got the ultimate thing. They got the guy that won 2 national championships an hour from here, 3 total, the guy that wins everywhere. So honestly, this isn't about they're excited that Urban, the former Gator coach, is here. They're excited that Urban, who wins everywhere, is here. You just said it. I'm telling you, you can feel the buzz. The Jags sent out season ticket renewals the night of the Urban presser, and apparently they're off the charts. So I think they're going to sell their tickets. I'm telling you, regardless of what happens when they actually play, we haven't had a feeling around here in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. He's putting together his staff, and one of the guys he hired me to be the lifeguard for that pool out there.
Yes,
so
you'd be a great lifeguard.
I've got that covered for you. Yeah. But, we don't know how quick. I'm convinced he'll be successful eventually. I don't know if it'll be quickly, even with Trevor Lawrence. And again, today Justin Fields declared for the draft, and I don't know his mind on that. Or I saw, I think it was Bart Scott made a suggestion that made sense to me, and that was trade some of those picks, get Deshaun Watson. Does that have any cachet in Jacksonville?
I don't think so. I think they want Trevor Lawrence here. Deshaun Watson's a wonderful player. I don't think when you have the first pick, the belief is, the narrative is, Pat, that this guy's generational, that he will be like Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning come into the league. He'll be the most promising prospect to come into the league since John Elway, maybe, other than those other 2 guys. This is a big deal. You get Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer. I wonder if Urban even takes the job if it's the 2nd or 3rd pick. He took the job knowing he had the first pick. He even said that in his presser. That had a lot to do with it. No, I don't think you trade out of here. If you're asking me, I'd rather have Trevor Lawrence and the picks they have than Deshaun Watson and additional picks. And believe me when I tell you this, I have great respect for Deshaun Watson. I call 2 of his games a year every year. We play him twice. He's a wonderful player, a wonderful guy, worthy of everything they've said about him. But this franchise is about to get Trevor Lawrence, who might be as good as come into this league in a long time. I don't think you get any. I don't think many people around here would buy into that. I really don't.
Now, what is the positions that they really? Because obviously, what is it? $79 million in cap money, I think it is, that they have available. A bunch of draft picks, more than normal. Is it just everywhere they're going to have to, bring in new players, or are there certain spots that you think are really important?
Well, you're right. You're not 1-15 because you're a quarterback away. It's a quarterback league and a quarterback sport, as Urban said the other day. But if you're 1-15, you probably got some other stuff. Pat, I think free agency is critical for one reason. It's a young team, and it's by far the youngest team in the league. So free agency isn't just about bringing in good players. They need to bring in guys that have played, guys that have been around the league a little bit. The gigantic weakness is defensive line. You got to be, this, Pat. I don't care if you're college football or the NFL. You're good if you have a good quarterback and a fast physical defense. Forget the rest. If you're fast and physical on defense and you have a good quarterback, you've got a real chance. Well, the Jags had neither, right? So now they're going to have a pretty good quarterback, you would think. I would be very active in the free agent area on defensive line. I think they're going to take a long look at Leonard Williams, at least I would. I think you bring in defensive linemen that are veterans. So I think the defensive line is where it starts. I would say secondary after that. They've got some good young secondary members. C.J. Henderson, the former Gator, is going to be a pretty good player. Sidney Jones, the other corner they really like. But they're young. So I would think defensive line first. I would think secondary next. But they have so many areas. They need another fast receiver. The running back, James Robinson, was a great find, the rookie last year. But they probably need a speed back to go with him. There's no depth along the offensive front. There hasn't been a tight end here that has made a dent in the NFL in probably 10 years. So there's a lot of areas. I would say, other than quarterback, defensive line is first, then probably secondary, then a little bit of everything. Look, they're 1-15. They lost 15 straight games. If you lose that many in a row, you got a lot of holes to fill.
That's hard to do. I remember the Bucks going 0-16, but that was their first year. With Steve Spurrier at quarterback.
I remember watching that as a kid in high school. I remember watching that season. This felt like that. I never thought I'd see them, and they'll admit to this, they felt hapless. I thought they played hard. I thought Doug Marrone had a good young group that played hard. They got after it, but they were overmatched in most of those games.
Well, another thing, Frank, that I think they really need to pay attention to, and maybe they didn't when they built that team that was really good and was a play away from getting to the Super Bowl and probably got jobbed on a bad call, was there were a bunch of mean guys on that team, and eventually they found that out when those guys had success, and they ended up having to get rid of all of them because they were bad in the locker room. I think it's important that Urban, who is usually a pretty good judge of character, does that with the guys he's going to bring in.
Yeah, there's no question. Pat, that team in 17 was 10 minutes. They led the Patriots by 10 in the fourth quarter, and they were a quarter away from getting to the Super Bowl. Two things happened after that team, Pat. Number one, they lost two veteran presence in the locker room. Mercedes Lewis, the tight end, and Paul Posluszny, the middle linebacker. Both tough guys, both in their 30s, both winners, both team guys. And the young players, even the entitled young players, deferred to those guys. They didn't really defer to Calais as much. He's a wonderful guy, but he's soft-spoken. But Mercedes Lewis and Paul Posluszny weren't soft-spoken. And the young guys deferred to them. Both those guys were gone. So then, to your point, then it's some young entitled guys, the wrong leaders. And when stuff starts to go bad, then it all goes bad. You can't handle the adversity. That team also had Blake Bortles, who was a good guy, but they overcame Blake some. They won with defense. Blake made some plays off schedule. Leonard Fournette had a big year. All that kind of went to pot. So, yeah, you have to have the right people. And one thing they did last year is they cleaned up the mess in the locker room. They cleaned up the cap, and they cleaned up the mess in the locker room. So they have a bunch of cap room, and they had a pretty good culture. Problem is they didn't have enough good players. You have to have some players who have done it in the league, and they didn't have that. So, yeah, I would think one of the things Urban has to do is make sure he doesn't have just good players, the right good players. I think he will. I think that's been his history. I don't think he'll have that.
Listening to different talk radio shows, and one guy will say, well, it's not hard to win in that division. And the next guy will say, boy, that's a tough division, 2 playoff teams. And I'm like, somebody make up your mind. I mean, again, we don't know what's going to happen at quarterback in Indianapolis, and I'm not sold on the Titans 100%. I like Derrick Henry a lot. But what do you think about that division?
Well, anybody who thinks it's not a good division is an idiot. That's what I think about the division. They had 2 playoff teams.
Let me remember who that was.
Yeah, Pat, they had 2 teams in the playoffs this year. They had a different 2 teams last year. They had the Jags in 17 almost get there. It's a tough, physical division. Indianapolis has the best offensive line in the league. They have for the longest time, and a pretty darn good defense, a top 5 defense. Tennessee's tough. They're built like Vrabel. There's a toughness about them, built around Derrick Henry. Houston's a mess now. That thing is really a mess. It got away from them. Bill O'Brien went all in, got rid of his draft picks, made some huge mistakes, couldn't get along with DeAndre Hopkins, ran him out of town. Now Deshaun wants out. Right. Houston is totally a mess right now, and it's going to take a while to get that thing rebuilt. But until this year, those other 3 franchises were really good. I still think the Titans and the Colts have good teams. I'm not sure what the Colts are going to do at quarterback. I'm not sure he's not coming back. I think Phillip Rivers played at a pretty good level this year. I'm not sure he doesn't come back. I think the Titans are built. They're very good offensively. They got to fix their defense. No, I think it's a good division. But look, it's the NFL. They're all good divisions. But this isn't. There's no Vanderbilts in the NFL.
No,
there's not. It's just so. It's a tough division. It's a tough league, and it's going to take a while. Nobody debates that.
There's no Eastern Washingtons. Yeah.
No, they don't come. They're not coming. I looked at the schedule. Eastern Washington isn't coming. Neither is Colorado State. The Charleston Southern. No Charlie South in this league.
Charleston Southern. Love that team. But, the interesting thing to me, as we all are thinking about this, is with Urban and his health. And we've seen him, it's almost like every loss took a piece of his soul. And he only lost, 32 times, I think it was,
right.
in college.
That's right.
32 times at 4 different stops. And you wonder if it does take a while and they go 4-12, how he's going to handle that. And I think he's convinced himself he'll have no trouble, but I don't think any of us really know.
Well, that was going to have to be the first question he answered in the presser, and the first question he answered to himself is, can you handle it when it doesn't go well? Look, that narrative's been out there so much, Pat, and you know Urban probably better than I do. I'm going to get to know him, but I don't know Urban well. But I would think that's the first question they had to ask is, how can he handle losing? I will say this. I do believe one of the reasons Urban took losing so hard at the college level is because he understood the significance of every loss. In college football, you lose once, you're probably, if your goal is the national championship or even a conference championship, if your goal is to win titles, in college football, you lose once, you're probably out. You lose twice, you're definitely out. So every loss's magnitude is magnified, and I think that's why it's so hard to bear the losses. I think he knows it. He studied the league. He knows if you're 12-4 in this league, you lose 4 times, you've had a heck of a year. And I think he understands that. Now, your question's a fair one. You can understand it all you want, but how do you feel when the clock hits 0 and you've lost? And how do you handle that? I don't even know if Urban knows that answer, Pat. I don't think you know that until you've gone through it. But I think he goes in with his eyes wide open. I think he goes in knowing the Jaguars are going to lose a bunch of games next year. I mean, realistically, even with Urban, with all the draft picks, with all the cap money, with Trevor Lawrence, who plays a rookie quarterback, at best, what are you, a 500 team maybe? You know, an 8 or 9 win team?
Yeah, he might be coach of the year.
Yeah, and you might be coach of the year if you pull that off. So I think everybody understands going in, this is going to be a tough challenge. Peyton Manning was 3-13 his first year in the league. It's a hard league. And I think people understand that. I think, look, in his presser, he was fantastic. I don't know if you saw it or not. He seemed humbled. He was to the point. It wasn't cocky. He was to the point where it demand excellence, and we're going to give fans a reason to be excited. But he came off, I thought his tone was just right. I thought it was sincere. I thought it was genuine. I think he knows what he's getting himself into. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's going to be interesting to see how what kind of offense he runs and what kind of – because you're not going to run the Tebow offense, even though Trevor Lawrence can really run. But in the NFL, it just doesn't work. You get guys hurt. We just saw yesterday Kansas City loses Mahomes for their AFC Championship game because he gets concussed, running a play that maybe you can question whether they should have run or not with him run the ball. But what do you think about with Trevor Lawrence? Do you think that this will be one of those deals like, dude, we are attached at the hip, you're starting first snap, first game, or do you bring in a veteran guy to – because, I mean, Gardner Minshew's not a veteran. You can't call him a veteran guy. Do you think they would do that, or would they say, you're the guy?
I don't know that they're going to publicly say you're the guy. I don't know if they're going to put out the depth chart today that Trevor Lawrence is number 1. But we all know he's the guy. He's advanced to where he's ready for that. He certainly appears to be. There's nobody else here. I don't know who knows if Gardner's going to be on the team, if Jake Luton's going to be on the team, Mike Glennon. Nobody knows that answer. Urban's going to build that team, but Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback. I don't think anybody debates it. As for the offense he'll run, I'll say this, Pat. Again, I've done this 7 years now in the NFL. It's not that different. The RPO has come to the National Football League, the spread offense. It's a different spread. But they spread the field and play fast the way the colleges do. I thought one of the smartest things Urban did when he got into head coaching, he was an assistant at Notre Dame, and he was assistant here and there, and then he got the head job at Bowling Green, and then Utah and Florida, you know. When he got into it, he wanted to build his own offense. He liked the spread. He had always been under this I formation with Earl Bruce at Ohio State and Bob Davie at Notre Dame. He liked the spread, but he liked the downhill power running of an I formation. So he said, how do I do both? And he figured it out. He learned an offense and built an offense. It's sort of a power spread, and that's what it was with Tebow, and that's what it was with J.T. Barrett at Ohio State. That's what he built, and I think he'll be fine. He's a good offensive coach. People think because he didn't call plays, he's not an offensive-minded guy. He's totally an offensive-minded guy. He knows what the offense wants to look like. Look, Urban coaching isn't the problem. What the style or scheme isn't the problem. The concern is you were 1-15, which means you need far more good players. And do they get the right GM in here? Do they get the right players? Do the players mesh quickly enough? That's what we're all going to measure and pay attention to. Urban's going to be fine, and Trevor Lawrence is going to be very good. Those two aren't the problem. I promise you that.
You know, was it the most interesting thing I learned this weekend was Aaron Rodgers was talking about why Green Bay's so good in goal line offense, and he says because we keep running our offense. We don't bring in a heavy package. We don't do any tighten it up, and I think other teams will do that, and that's what I can see Urban doing, where they're still spreading it out when they get down there on the goal line.
Yeah, well, one answer is a great quote from Aaron Rodgers. You know when you can do that? When you have Aaron Rodgers.
That's true.
I mean, you don't have to change when you have the best quarterback playing, or certainly among them. I think some teams have to do things. Again, Urban is committed. I'll tell you one about Urban. He's committed to what he's going to do. Right or wrong, he has a pretty good plan. And boy, Pat, I do think this quarterback's special. Again, we've had so much bad happen. I'm knocking on wood everywhere I can to make sure when I say this that I don't curse the next thing. But the quarterback's really good and the coach is really good, and everything points to it's going to be fun times around here. We'll see. I mean, no one's played a game. We're months from a game, right. But everything finally it's lined up for the Jaguars. The odds have never quite lined up for this team, and everything seems to be in place. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to watch Urban coach in the NFL. I can't wait to see how he'll do and how he'll adjust and all that. I can't wait to see the staff. The staff starting. Charlie Strong. We think Charlie's going to be here. We don't know for sure, but we hope he is. Some of the other coaches he's talked to have been head coaches, and I can't wait to see this whole thing unfold.
We got a question from Kyle on YouTube. He wants to know if the success in Jacksonville would help Urban's chances of getting into the Ring of Honor, which has always been a question down here. He's been eligible for a couple of years. I know the Florida brass want to get him in, but they also don't want to see him introduced and get booed.
No, I hear you. I wouldn't think, Kyle, and I don't know this, Pat can answer this better than I can. I wouldn't think anything that happens once you're gone from Florida would have any effect on that. I would think that Ring of Honor at the Swamp is based on and solely on what you've done at the University of Florida. So, now if you become a Hall of Famer in the NFL, I suppose that's in play. But I would think first and foremost what you do at Florida, and I get that he had enormous success at Florida, but then it was awkward when he left. And in fairness to the guy, and again, I don't know him very well. I never got the sense he lied. I got the sense when he quit, he really was legitimately worried about his health, and then came back maybe too soon, then left again. I don't think he left. In my opinion, I might be wrong. Pat, I don't think he left Florida so he could get sneaky, go to a little TV, then pop up back at Ohio State. I don't believe that. I think he took every day. Maybe he made some drastic decisions, but I don't think he did. I don't think it was conniving. What do I know, right? But I don't. So I hope he gets in down there. I don't know whether he will or not. I don't know. But I get everything you're talking about. I don't think what he does here will affect that.
Yeah, I don't think he should have come back the first time. He should have just left it where it was, gotten himself healthy, and then if Ohio State opened up, that would have worked out. Before I let you go, I got to let you know that our next guest, it's an all Jacksonville day. Ciatrick Fason is going to join us. And I want to ask you this trivia question, see if you can get it. How many 1,000-yard rushers has the Gators had in history of the school?
Man, you put me on a spot here.
It's a hard one.
I want to say 3. Am I close?
No, you're not close. It's 11.
11. Okay, I figured that you were asking me that. So 11 1,000-yard rushers.
And he's one of them.
Yeah, no question. In fact, I thought one of the best games ever was when they won at LSU.
Oh yeah.
In the year LSU won the national championship, whatever year that was, 03, 04, somewhere about.
Yeah.
I thought Ciatrick Fason's game that day was magnificent. I thought it was one of the best performances. The best team in America couldn't tackle him. When the best team in America can't tackle you, you've probably had a pretty good day. I think Gator fans will remember that game as one of the most in a season that was forgettable. One of the most memorable performances I can ever remember.
By the way, Emmett and Rhett both did it twice. So,
are you counting them twice in the 11?
Yeah, I'm counting them twice. Yeah.
Okay, so you asked me how many people did. See, you deceived me there. Okay, that's what happened there.
But Fred Taylor did. I mean, that's your guy.
Fred is my guy. Fred's as good as C4 is our guy too. We got a lot of good guys around here. So
Fred and his son both did. Not too many people can say that. Well, we'll let you go. We appreciate your time. It's always great talking to you, and look forward to seeing what's going on with this year. I think it is the most interesting story. After the Super Bowl, it's the most interesting story.
Pat, I agree with you. I agree with you. Thank you for having me on. And let me echo what everybody else has said. I miss you your writing already. I can't wait to see it on WRUF.com or wherever it pops up, because you're a legend in our industry. So thank you for having me on. Anytime you need me, brother, I'm here.
All right. Appreciate it, Frank. Frank Frangie, the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just call him voice. All right. Right now it is time to do 3 things. And for that, I will take off these headsets. And these are nice new headsets, man. Pretty sweet. The only thing is there's a little bit of an echo, so I'll do 3 things without them. 3 things presented by Trey Tucker, executive coaching, licensed therapist who can take you from good to great. All right, here are the 3 things, and we're going to start with number 1. It's almost like people did not know it was a rule that when you fumble the ball through the end zone, it's a touchback, okay? I've seen a billion games in my life. Every time it happens, remember the time it happened up in Knoxville, C.J. Henderson tackled that guy from behind, the tight end. Ball went through the end zone, and immediately everybody turned to each other and goes, that's a touchback. We all know it's a rule. And everybody's acting like they didn't know it was a rule and that the rule needs to change. Oh, you've got to change this rule. This can't be it. It was a huge play in that game on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. When Higgins fumbled the ball at the 1-foot line and it went out through the end zone. But why would you all of a sudden change the rule because of that one play? No. What you do need to do is start enforcing targeting in the NFL. They enforce targeting in college football, unbelievable level. Maybe too much for my taste. In the NFL, you got to really target a guy. Put your head down and go after him. But there was definitely targeting on that play, and that caused the fumble. All right, number 2. It was the Drew Brees thing after the game with Tom Brady and those guys talking and playing with the kids was really touching to see. If we're done with Drew Brees, we will be sad. I'll be sad. I like the guy. I always got along with him. But think about this. Tom Brady now is playing in his 14th championship game. 14 championship games. That's a lot. And so number 3, if you haven't seen any of the Tiger documentary, I highly recommend it. I thought we were going to get a fluff piece and it was going to be, everybody saying, oh, how great he was and everything. But no, we're not getting that. We aren't getting that. Go ahead and watch it. You will be amazed. And it is not a very flattering picture, but it's fascinating stuff. All right, so that does it for 3 things. Thanks to Trey Tucker, executive coaching. We got to take a break. When we come back, Ciatrick Fason is going to join us here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. You may be like the Florida football team and you want to move from good to great. I can tell you how to do that with the help of a Gator graduate. His name is Trey Tucker, and he's an executive coach and licensed therapist who can give you the kind of guidance that will unlock your potential. With one-on-one online sessions, he'll develop your communication skills, find your purpose, and identify your strengths. Take a step in the right direction with Trey Tucker by reaching him at 423-799-0769 or trey@tuckerexecutivecoaching.com. Executive coaching from a licensed therapist with more than a decade of corporate experience and someone who knows the fight song, what's not to like? And tell them Pat Dooley sent you. All right, welcome back to Another Dooley Noted Podcast, and it's a great pleasure to be joined. This is an all Jacksonville day because we had Frangie on earlier to talk about the Jaguars, and now one of the great running backs in Florida history, Ciatrick Fason, C4, as he called himself, I think. Who gave you that nickname?
Ernest Graham. My freshman year, Ernest Graham gave it to me.
Can he hear me? C4, who gave you that nickname? Uh-oh.
Ernest Graham.
Ernest Graham did?
Ernest Graham, my freshman year.
Yeah, your picture needs to go down a little bit. There you go. We're all technically challenged, man. Well, one thing I wanted to talk to you about is this great thing that you're doing with Star Ready. You came back to your community after being in the NFL for a little bit and trying to get a youth league going and getting that going. Tell us about that.
Well, I ended up starting it. One of my kids was playing football, and the team he was playing for, I really didn't like, and I didn't feel like they was learning anything. So I felt, it was a way I could give back to the community, hire good coaches, and I always like to be around kids, and because I believe they're our future. So I wanted to just start that and just give them a direction. And luckily, our team ended up being good, and we ended up having a lot of kids, from the last 2 years go to college.
Well, that's great. That's great that you're able to do that, and a lot of I think the ages is that 5 to 14?
5 through 14, but I also started a business. My football is Florida Gators, and then I started a business with just training those same athletes and even athletes around the city called Star Ready Athletes. So they pretty much don't leave me. Once they come, they stay. And, even some of my college boys, as soon as they come back to town, they call me and try to get that training in.
So what do you do that's different? Or is it just putting the effort in?
Effort, and I talk to them. I tell them the ins and outs about sports, and show them the little things. Being able to play at the college level and at the pro level, I could teach them things that a lot of trainers can't teach because they haven't been at that level. So I teach them the little things and just the little footwork drills, and I preach effort because a lot of kids don't know effort take you a long way through high school, through college, and even the pros.
Now, when you came to Florida, you were signed by Steve, right?
I committed under Steve. I was committed under Coach Spurrier for 2 years, and then when it finally hit my senior year, that's when he took the job at Washington. But I was stuck on being a Gator. So,
How disappointing was that for you, though?
It was very disappointing. Everybody want to play for the old ball coaching. The position I play, being an offensive player, and just knowing those points he put up, and knowing how easy it is for the running backs to run under his system because you had to respect the pass so much. So it was very disappointing, but it was a blessing to be able to play for Coach Zook.
Yeah, and that obviously you played 3 years and then decided to move on, but you're one of a select company to rush for 1,000 yards. And here's where I'm going to give you a trivia question, okay? How many players in Florida history have rushed for 1,000 yards in a season?
How many players in the history? Say 7.
It's pretty close. It's actually it's 11 total, but 9 individuals. Emmett twice, Eric Rhett twice, Fred and Kelvin Taylor, father son. That's pretty good. Mike Gillisley, Ernest Graham, who you know very well. He did it 2 years before you, and then of course it's interesting to me that Spurrier actually had the most 1,000-yard rushers of any of those guys. But you did it with 1,267. It wasn't even close for you. A lot of these guys rushing for 1,009 yards, man. I mean, did you know what a big deal it was when you went over 1,000?
Oh, definitely. A lot of it was crazy. The day I stepped on UF campus, that was my goal. I used to tell my roommates and all my teammates, man, if I get the ball a certain amount of times, I'm gonna get 1,000 yards. And I don't know if you remember that C4 Ready to Explode article that came out into my sophomore year, and I was like, man, those other guys around the country getting all these carries, I don't get those carries, but I always said it was a big deal. The rush for 1,000 yards in the SEC is huge, and it's even better when you lead the SEC in rushing. So, but I was always motivated, and that was my goal to get 1,000 yards in the SEC.
What game do you like more? What was your favorite game? Was it that game at LSU or that game at Ron Field? Bobby, when the night they dedicated Bobby Bowden Field?
I say those two games you just named, the LSU game, because that was pretty much my coming out party, and it was huge. And going to Baton Rouge, and they was ranked so high, and it was the year they won a national championship. Right. So being able to go in there and make a name for begin to make a name for myself and throughout the college football world, that was huge. And then going to Tallahassee, with all the disrespect, trying to name Coach Bowden Field the day we play him, and then leading up to that game, they didn't give up 100-yard rusher for like 3 years. So being able to go in there and do that and come out with a victory was huge. So those two games always, to me, was the biggest games, even though it was just, one game was 97 yards rushing and one game was 100, but it was just the impact of those games.
Which one more, though? Which one did you like more?
Oh, it's got to be Florida State. It's nothing like going to Doak and running over them and coming out with that W.
Yeah, how stupid can you be to try to dedicate the field on the night you're playing your arch rival? I mean, do it against Southern Miss or somebody, so you're going to win.
It was totally disrespectful. The funny thing is, we had no idea Coach Zook didn't say anything about it. We found out that when we stepped on the field that night, that they were dedicating the field to Coach Bowden. So that stings us. That definitely stings us.
I was going to say that must have fired you guys up pretty good.
Definitely.
Where do you think your style of running? Because you were always a tough runner. You always turned 2 into 4 and 4 into 6. Where did that come from?
But just watching those older backs, man, and I was always told, man, never let one man bring you down. So that was almost always my goal. I watched Chris Warren, I watched the old Tony Dorsett, but my best running back of all time was Sweetness. I think Walter Payton's the greatest running back of all time. So being able to just watch those older backs, I was able to steal a little style from them. And even I'm a San Francisco 49er fan, so being able to watch Roger Craig, that's where I get my E-lift from. So, just being able to watch those older backs and just stealing things here and there and putting it all into one package. And that's what made me the back that I was.
I was actually at that Super Bowl where Roger Craig destroyed the Dolphins. And that was the most amazing performance I think I've ever seen. I mean, they had nothing for him. But, I mean, that was kind of what you did, too, catching the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, definitely. And I always tell people Roger Craig, the first thousand guy, he gets overlooked a lot. But, that was my goal. I was like, let me try to get close to 1,000 yards receiving as I can. And, Chris threw me the ball a lot. So yeah. I was able to showcase my catching skills as well as my running skills.
Yeah, I mean, who were you closest to on that team? Whether it was, I mean, I know you and Ernest were really close, but who else on that team from 02 to 04?
Oh man, the friendships is crazy. I was pretty much close with everybody. They'll tell you to this day, my attitude was different from everybody. I always felt like I was the best, not in a cocky way. Just felt like I brought that Gator attitude that those guys had in the 90s. I'm the best and we're going to do this and I'm trying to get to the NFL. And recently I told Channing on his birthday, happy birthday. And he texted me and was like, man, I just wanted to say I appreciate you, man. You're the reason why I got the attitude that I got, feeling like I was the greatest. And, that meant a lot. And then Brian Crum told me the same thing like 2 months prior. So a lot of those guys reach out, and some of them even apologize and say, we sorry we wasn't on your level mentally when we was all freshmen, because we all signed together. But they was like, now looking back at it, they understood, So, but all those guys, man, I'm so close to all of them. I was doing this camp called Gator Mania for the youth, and I bring the older guys in, and they'll help run the camp, like Joe Cohen, Nick Brooks, Brian Crum, Kyle Jackson. A lot of those guys have come back, and the COVID, it hurt it this year. Right. But I'm hoping to bring it back next year, bigger and better, and bring all those guys back, because they all showed me love, man. I appreciate all my teammates, no matter if they started or not. I'm close to all of them.
Isn't Channing doing some radio down in South Florida somewhere?
Yeah, he's down in South Florida, man.
I'd love to hear that show. Because he was literally the best quote we had on that team by far. I mean, he would always give you funny answers on everything.
Definitely, but he was a smart guy. That's the crazy thing. He was crazy, funny answers, but he was smart and intelligent. So,
if Ron Zook doesn't get fired, would you come back for one more year?
Nah. Nah, just because of my situation, I had 2 kids,
right.
And it's not. I don't think my draft grade would have got any higher before I left. But before I declared for the draft and hired an agent, I was given a late 1st round to 4th round grade, which I felt went in the 4th round. So it was the earliest was a late 1st round, and then the latest they said 4th round. And I was like, I don't think my grade gonna change, and leading the SEC. Right. Trying to do it twice, whew, that's a load. People would have been gunning for me, but I would have still left. But I was just, it was an honor just to go out with Zook. When he got fired, and I told him one day we was going to practice, we was preparing for Georgia, and I was like, "Don't worry about it, Coach. We're gonna leave here a winner together." And he looked at me, he was like, "So you weren't gonna never come back?" I was like, "Nah, Coach, I'm out of here when I get these 1,000 yards."
That's hilarious. Hey, do people still call you C4?
Everybody. It's crazy. I'm back home in Jacksonville, and me and my wife and kids we'll go out places, and they say, "You look like this running back we know," and I say my first name, and they be like, "Nah, we talking about C4," and I'm like, "Yeah, my real name is my name is Ciatrick Fason." So, but everybody back home still calls me C4. All the Gator boys still call me C4. So, that name ain't gonna never die. So, I embrace it, and it's just an honor to have a nickname like that meant a lot, and I was able to back that nickname up. So,
well, C4, it's been great to have you on, and the stuff you're doing in the community is tremendous, and it's so great to see you doing so much stuff there.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks for being on. C4, or as I call him, Ciatrick. I'm allowed to do that. All right, headsets off. Okay. We did get a question on the let's see, it was on the text line. Jim on the text line wanted to know about Florida basketball making the tournament, or whether they'd make the tournament. Today, it's kind of interesting that Mike White was on they had a conference call, like they always do, a Zoom call, and he said, "We're not a tournament team right now." He said, I'll let you know in a month whether we are. And watching that game Saturday, I was watching the game, and I was like, these are 2 teams that are going nowhere. Like, both teams, you could just tell, aren't good enough to go anywhere in the tournament. If they get in the tournament, they both might sneak in. Obviously, Florida's problems are pretty simple. They're not hard to figure out. They can't rebound. They're not rebounding. And again, this goes back to Keontae not being there, and that's a huge factor. They don't have Scotty Lewis. Now, I don't know if he's playing tomorrow. I didn't see whether they announced that or not against Tennessee. Tennessee is, I think, still, even though Alabama's leading the league, I still think Tennessee's got the best team in the conference. And that's going to be a rough one here in Gainesville for Florida, especially Castleton's ankle. You know, he did come back in the game, but it swelled up afterwards, and I don't know how much he's going to be able to play. He practiced a little bit yesterday. And again, without him, they have nobody to rebound. It was so frustrating, though, at the end of the game, because I'll be honest with you, I'm flipping. You know, they're down 12 or whatever it was. I'm flipping. I go back, and they're making this great comeback. And that says something to make a comeback like that. And they do that, and they get a chance because Mississippi State tries to make a layup when all they got to do is dribble around and end the game. They try to make a layup, guy misses, hits under part of the basket. Florida gets the ball with more than 10 seconds to go. And I'm thinking to myself, well, Chioza got up and down, all the way down the court in 3.4 seconds, made a shot to win a game. This team is built differently. All they seemed to be doing was to try to find Trey Mann to get him the ball because he's a point guard. And again, they couldn't call timeout, and he tried to get fouled on a shot. And I will give their defender credit. He knew just not to foul him. But again, it's another loss, and this team feels a little bit lost, like this is a lost season. I'm not trying to be critical of anybody. Because I have a saying that there are two kinds of pressure, two kinds of hot seats. There is the perceived hot seat and the real hot seat. The perceived hot seat is when fans think you're on the hot seat. Sports writers, radio guys doing podcasts, they think you're on the hot seat. Those aren't real. That's not a real hot seat. That's a perceived hot seat. A real hot seat is when the athletic director and the big boosters think you're on a hot seat. Luckily, Florida's not a place where the boosters are running the show as they are in some other places, Auburn being a good example of that, football-wise. But at any rate, that was my thoughts on that. We do have to take a break, and then we'll come back with the Leonardo's Millhopper Quick Picks contest. We had our winner for the first segment of it. Keith Collier won it. I was able to get him his prizes. Luckily, his daughter happened to be in town. And so I met her and got her his prizes, and hopefully she doesn't spend them all. But we'll have another contest with more prizes. So I've already talked to my friend Kyle Cohen, who owns Leonardo's, and we're going to put some pizzas up there and do some cool things with that. And we'll be back in just a minute to talk about that, and we'll give you the contest entries. I'll also put them up on Facebook and on Twitter as well. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of Another Duly Noted Podcast right after this.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. Don't forget, you can watch Another Duly Noted Podcast every Monday and Friday on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. I've tried to let everybody know where you can see it. Some people are still kind of getting on, that's good. I think it's just growing and growing. You can listen to it whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. The WRUF link is getting fixed right now. They had a little problem with it over the weekend. It'll be up on that. Castbox, Overcast, Podbean. What's Podbean, Freddie? I don't know what Podbean is. I've never heard of that one, but maybe I'll go listen to Podbean. 39 different platforms you can find it. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. It is time now to do the Leonardo's quick picks. Again, we're going to start a whole new one. We had a great one, and we had a lot of people get in. All you have to do is email me your contest entry to patrickdooley54@gmail.com. Okay? And you know my phone number. I give it on every show. If you want to text me your picks, I'll take them that way too. And my number is 352-317-3444. But if you do that, I'm going to be tempted to try to sell you some advertising or a sponsorship. So you might want to just stick with the sending the emails. All right. It's kind of a weird one this week. We're doing mostly Gator basketball tomorrow night. And we start out with the most obvious one. I was trying to find spreads all day, and you could only get them for tonight's game. I couldn't find them for tomorrow. Finally gave up. So we're just going even. Florida, Tennessee. Now Tennessee, I'm sure, is favored, but Florida versus Tennessee, who wins the game? That's number one. Number two, who scores more points? Is it Appleby or is it Mann? 2 point guards. Who scores more points? Appleby led Florida in scoring on Saturday. I didn't think what day of the week it was. Number three is, and this is a painful one to do. What is the over-under on Florida being out-rebounded? And 10 is the over-under. Now, if it doesn't make sense to you, if you think Florida will be out-rebounded by less than 10, you do the under. If you think they'll be out-rebounded by more than 10, you do the over. This week, they were out-rebounded on Saturday's game by 21. Now, they have a good rebounding team, and we know what the problems Florida has. And then finally, the last two teams that Florida played were Ole Miss and Mississippi State. They're playing Saturday or Tuesday. Who wins that game? So there are the four on the Leonardo's Millhopper Quick Picks contest. And again, Friday we'll do it again. We'll have another one and get qualifiers for that. We'll be doing obviously all NFL stuff on Friday, and we'll also on Friday have Reese Davis, who we love so much, great friend of mine, and I'm pretty sure Jason Odom is coming on Friday as well. Former Florida player, former winner of the Jacobs Award and an All-American, and it'd be great to have him on. Last thing I wanted to say and talk about was, this Charlie Strong going to the Jaguars. It appears they're going to make him an associate head coach or whatever, give him a title. Florida talked to him. They had a lot of conversations. I think he would have preferred to come to Florida. But at the same time, he talked to Todd Grantham. They had conversations, and he didn't feel comfortable with maybe what is going on there, or what Todd wants out of him, or what he wants out of Todd. He wanted to be a coordinator, and to me, Todd Grantham doesn't have a leg to stand on. Now, I know that Todd Grantham's not as bad a defensive coach as that defense looked this year. He's not. He was a really good defensive coordinator his first 2 years. Florida was in the top 10 in defense. Last year, they were horribly bad. It was historical how bad they were. And if I ever can get my back nine up, I've got some great stats in there. One of them would, if Florida had given up 31 points a game, which they did this year, if they had done that for the previous 14 years, their record would have been something like 20-73. All this is in there when we get it up. 40-73. Think about that. Just ridiculous how bad they were. And I know that a lot of coaches want to blame it on COVID. People couldn't hit. Not everybody was bad on defense, though, right? This team was really bad on defense. I think it would have been a great move to get him in here no matter what Charlie required. And I think it would have, for Dan, it would have saved his summer with the fan base. The fan base said they're kind of teetering with him right now, and it's kind of surprising. At the same time, it's not surprising. This is Florida. They go like this. They jump on and off bandwagons. There's sprained ankles everywhere. But I think it would have been a great move. Didn't happen. I guess in theory it still could happen tonight. I don't think it will. But I think he's going to actually sign on Tuesday. He's going to sign his Jaguars contract. So who knows? Maybe the Tennessee Vols call him and want him to be their head coach. They have called him in the past, and he turned it down. I could go on and on about that job and what I think of it. I don't think it's a great job. To me, it's in the second tier of jobs. Now, when I say that, I think Alabama is obviously number one. I think Florida is one of the great jobs. Once they get this facility built, it will be in the top tier. Certainly Ohio State, places like that, Oklahoma. There's a reason why these teams do so well, is they are great jobs because they have everything in place. They have the structure. So that any coach can walk in there and do a good job. I don't think Tennessee's that place. It's not a great state for football talent. You have to go outside the state, so you don't have that. I'm not saying they don't have any players in Tennessee, but they have a problem getting a lot of them. And if you go to Memphis, you got to deal with street agents and stuff like that. So it's a hard job. And that's maybe why Jeremy Pruitt cheated, which apparently he did, and that's the reason that he's out as the coach of the Tennessee Volunteers. They're back to being the Kardashians, I guess you could say. Look good, but don't ever do anything. And the funny thing about it is, remember, I'll never forget this. When they beat Indiana, now at the time, nobody was thinking Indiana was any good. It turned out Indiana was really good this year. But at the time when they beat Indiana in the Gator Bowl, Jeremy Pruitt was so happy. Phil Fulmer said, "We're back," because they had won 6 in a row, 7 in a row, whatever it was. No, you weren't. You weren't back. You hadn't beaten anybody, okay? You beat Missouri. You beat South Carolina. You hadn't beaten anybody. Well, those words came back to haunt him as he's stepping down as well. And what a mess. What a mess. Just when you think Tennessee can't be any more of a mess, they find a way to make it more of a mess. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Again, thanks so much to our sponsors. Our main sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI. Certainly to my good friend over there at Leonardo Millhopper. We love them. We love the pizzas as well. And to Trey Tucker, we appreciate him. Trey Tucker, of course, executive coaching. Need a couple more? We get a couple more sponsors going. We'll get this thing really rocking and rolling. Don't forget, Friday's show, Reese Davis and Jason Odom are going to join us, and we got some other people lined up. Greg Sankey's going to join us at some point. We think Dan Mullen. He may be mad at me now after saying all that, so he may not come on. We'll see. But until next time, I am Pat Dooley. I am deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.